So far, you've seen how to create posts with WordPress's visual editor, whether you were aware of it or not. So the post that we created, we simply pasted in some text, or perhaps you typed in some text on your own, and we created a bulleted list, and we did some simple formatting and so on. But there's another way to go about creating posts in WordPress, and that is by using WordPress's built-in HTML editor. So in other words, if you're comfortable with HTML, and if you're even comfortable with CSS, then you can actually code your posts by hand. Or what you could even do is you could create some posts or create some of your post elements in an external HTML editor, perhaps a program like Dreamweaver, and then you could take the HTML code and the CSS code that gets created for you over in Dreamweaver, and then you can simply copy it and then paste it into a new post here in WordPress. It's pretty cool stuff. It's pretty flexible. So let's take a look at exactly how all of this is going to work. So I'm looking at my dashboard right now, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure that the Posts menu over on the left-hand side is expanded, and then I'll go ahead and click on Edit. And before we actually go and create an HTML post that uses the HTML editor here in WordPress, I want to show you how you can use the HTML editor to edit some existing posts that we already have. So once again, what I'm going to do is I'm going to head back to this welcome to my new blog post, the single post that you and I have created so far together. All right, and as always, I'm just going to expand out my browser so we can see exactly what we have here. So this area here where you and I have been editing and formatting our posts, and you and I just added in that more tag, for example, this is the visual editor. And the toolbar running across the top is the toolbar for the visual editor as well. But of course, as I say, we can use WordPress's HTML editor as well. I don't know if you've eyeballed this before or not, but way up in the top right corner, we have two tabs, Visual and HTML. And quite honestly, I find myself flipping back and forth between these two guys, depending on what I'm doing. But we haven't seen the HTML editor yet, so go ahead and click on the HTML tag there, and all of a sudden, we're thrown into this HTML editor here inside WordPress. I'm just going to scroll down a bit so we can actually see what we have here. Now, what I'd like to do here is I want to sort of tour you through this and kind of explain a couple of things here. First of all, our bulleted list. Notice that our bulleted list no longer looks like a bulleted list. It's now coded as a bulleted list using HTML. Now, if you don't know HTML, by the way, don't worry here. It's pretty simple stuff. It's pretty straightforward stuff. HTML is not rocket science by any stretch of the imagination. So, for example, what I have here is HTML's UL element. So that stands for an unordered list. That's our bulleted list, right? And then each of our list items, for example, is contained inside a list item element. That's the LI. And if you're brand new to HTML, how it works is most elements have an opening tag, the LI, for example, and a closing tag, which is always preceded by that / there. So anyway, there's a look at our unordered list, our bulleted list, in code view, if you will. Now, what's interesting to note as well is that more tag. This is what the more tag looks like in HTML. So back in our visual editor, remember it was that horizontal line and it had the more text there down on the right-hand side. Well, in HTML view, it actually looks like an HTML comment, if you're familiar with HTML comments. I'll scroll down just a little bit here and we have even more code. For example, there's our center-aligned paragraph. We'd love to hear what you have to say. And don't forget that paragraph was also italicized, wasn't it? As indicated by the M element, right? That's code for italics or emphasis, as it's known in HTML. And then we have another center-aligned paragraph, which is also italicized, which also has a hyperlink. Now, let me just select this hyperlink here. Remember, way back, you and I had set up this piece of text, this paragraph, to be clickable. We set it up to be a hyperlink, right? So as you can see, there's the link. It opens with A for anchor, and then href, hyperlink reference, equals, and then remember I had you type this in, mail to, and then your email address, and then question mark subject equals, and then that was our subject line in there, right? So what we're seeing here again is this code view, this almost this back-end view, if you will, for our post. And if you're comfortable with this, you can actually code in HTML in this view, or as I started off saying, you could actually take some code that was created somewhere else, perhaps in Dreamweaver, and simply copy it and then paste it into this view. So at this point, what you might want to do is compare the HTML tab here at the top, the HTML editor, with your visual editor. And again, if you don't know HTML, or if you're just getting up to speed with HTML, this is a great way to kind of catch on and sort of get yourself up to speed in terms of how things look back and forth between the visual mode, the visual editor, and your built-in HTML editor.